unlicensed premises. We have a specific don't do drunk policy, which prevents the sale of alcohol to customers who are intoxicated, in which all front of house staff are trained. We operate Challenge 21 in this premises, so anybody who is lucky enough to look under the age of or around the age of 21 is asked for ID to prove that they are over the age of 18. We don't have music, so it's not a venue where customers will be leaving the premises habitually shouting because they've been shouting over loud music noise for the whole of the evening. And as I say, if the application is granted, we'll also be providing food up to midnight as well, in conjunction with alcohol, which is beneficial in terms of regulating customers' behaviour. Dispersal will be well managed. We won't allow customers to congregate outside the premises. Speaking to Joe and Trevor, generally speaking, they disperse away anyway fairly quickly to elsewhere in the town. But if it's a case of a group of customers, as we do now, congregating outside, we will disperse them onwards as opposed to causing issues to our residential neighbours. And as I pointed out, it will allow a more gradual dispersal of customers away from the premises rather than the current dispersal time from 12 at midnight. Taxis have been mentioned. I mean, taxis are quite hard to come by, Joe and Trevor tell me, in the town at that time of night, but lots of customers access the premises on foot. We do provide taxi numbers in the pub so that if customers want to pre-book a taxi, which I think is the requirement given the scarcity, then they do so in advance of that taxi being needed. There's been no representation of the police or EHO, and they are the key stakeholders in respect of antisocial behaviour, crime and disorder and noise, and I would ask you, Chair, to give due weight to that fact. Speaking to Joe and Trevor in advance of the hearing this morning, they haven't had any direct complaints from residents. Mr Gregory contacts the licensing officer on a monthly basis, both for this pub and all his other pubs, to get any feedback in terms of problems with the premises, and the feedback has been very good in respect of these premises and no issues have been raised. He has spoken to the current licensing officer, Rebecca Baker, in respect of this application, and they have agreed to liaise if the application is granted in respect of any measures which the police may want to ask for or implement if issues arise, but they haven't raised a representation, Chair. The only complaint we have had in respect of the premises was in respect of the extract, but that actually was not our extract from the bakers. So it is a premises that operates very well currently, operates, we would say, in a responsible fashion, taking into account the concerns of the neighbours, given our policies and procedures that are in place. So that's the application, Chair. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. I've also obviously got the operation team in charge of the premises who are perhaps better placed to answer your questions, or indeed those of the residents who have attended today. So that's my opening submission, Chairman. Many thanks.
Thank you for that. Councillors, do you have any questions at the moment?
Only one. You mentioned you got 5 in Plymouth, 5 pubs in Plymouth City. For instance, what time is the closing time of the Man of Mead on Mutley Plain? Just sort of...
so they close at 1 a.m. Friday, Saturdays, and then midnight Sunday through.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, midnight Sunday through to Thursday, 1 a.m. on a Friday and Saturday.
I was going to ask your rationale as to a business plan for this, and it's been explained. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've just got a question, please, around the ground floor and the smoking area. Are the hours for use proposed to be extended for that as well, in line with this extra?
There's absolutely, as your licence officer said, Chair, there's absolutely no intention to alter any of the timings of the gardens. I remember coming to this committee, I think 11 years ago when the premises first opened, and that was an area of contention, but I think we arrived at a comfortable place there in terms of not having people outside beyond a certain time consuming in the gardens, and there's no intention to change that at all. The arrangements will stay exactly the same. Currently, the smokers are limited to the sort of passageway area at ground floor level. If you look to the pub from the opposite side of the street, it's on the right-hand side, up the side of the premises.
Okay, can I just confirm that will then, so what hours will that cease use of that smoking area?
In terms of the use for the condition for the ground floor smoking area limits the use of that area from 10 p.m. for consumption of food and drink, but it doesn't limit its use for smoking at 10 p.m. in the ground floor area. So currently that can continue to be used by smokers until closing time, presumably, is that? So that would be the case going forwards as well. It would be the closing time for the ground floor area for smoking.
I might circle back to that one. I'm just going through, I'm just mindful of some of the representations that have been made to us, and obviously including the glass, etc., outside, and I appreciate you can't stop people from smoking outside on the street, but just really about the concern around the broken glass, etc., that's left outside sometimes.
Chair, just to preempt any questions regarding the smoking area, obviously what we would want to avoid is having people smoking at the front if possible, because at least if they are smoking at the side, then they are sort of under our control and management, and much harder to control at the front of the premises. Mr. Gregory tells me that after 2200 they can't take any glass outside the premises. It's not a question that I've raised in respect of litter in the immediate vicinity, but certainly it's general practice in all our pubs at the end of the night to have a sort of sweep of the area in front of the pub and the immediate vicinity to see if there are any glasses or litter, and then to pick that up. So that's something that we are happy to commit to if that's a concern of the residents.
Thank you for that. If there are no other questions, councillors. Thank you. So we can now move on to our attendees that are registered to speak. And the first one, please, is Councillor Anne Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Committee. I wish to object to the proposed extension of licensing hours for the Queen's Head Tavistock on the following grounds under the licensing objectives. 1. Public safety. The area surrounding the premises in West Street has good street lighting, but late at night, roads leading to estates on the edge of town don't have any street lighting after midnight. Extended opening hours would increase risks to public safety for both residents and patrons leaving the venue during the early hours. Reduced visibility and increased intoxication levels may contribute to accidents, antisocial behaviour and disturbances. There is no public transport at such a late hour. There are unlikely to be any taxis available or police present. Secondly, prevention of public nuisance. There is significant concern regarding noise and disturbance from customers leaving the premises late at night. Patrons often leave in loud and boisterous groups, creating shouting, swearing and general disruption in nearby residential streets, such as Bannerwell Street, Russell Street and Lakeside. Extending licensing hours is likely to increase the duration and frequency of this nuisance, particularly during late night and early morning hours when residents are trying to sleep. And thirdly, protection of children from harm. 67 people living in West Street are registered residents on the electoral roll. This includes families with children. Sleep is essential for children's health, well-being and education. Increased late-night noise and disturbance from individuals leaving the Queen's Head would negatively affect children living nearby through disruption of sleep and feeling of insecurity within the local environment. I would strongly encourage the licensing committee to have a site meeting to see for themselves the proximity of the site to residential properties. For these reasons, I respectfully ask that the application to extend the licensing hours be refused. However, if members are minded to approve, I would strongly request that conditions are added regarding dispersal, noise control and external areas to ensure the prevention of public nuisance is fully protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillors of the committee. Sorry, we've got councillors and councillors. Do you have any questions for our speaker? Thank you. So our next registered speaker is a Mr. Kevin Taylor. Yeah, would you like to come and address the committee? Did you wish to do so? Sorry, I do apologise. If you're going to speak, you will need to just come forward and use one of the microphones, please, so that we can make sure that you're picked up. Thank you.
I've not really got anything more to add to what I've already heard. My concerns are to do with the noise in the areas outside the pub. I understand from what I've heard here that there shouldn't really be anybody drinking or smoke, well, certainly drinking outside in those areas after 10 o'clock. And that, from walking past that pub, I've certainly seen people smoking out there and drinking beyond that. At the front of the building where I live on West Street, if you've got your windows open, you do hear a lot of noise up to very, very late at night. And when I moved into that property 2 years ago, we were aware we were going to get some sort of noise there. You wouldn't move near to an airport and then complain about the noise. Obviously, my contention is that that's going to be extended. That's basically it.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Thank you. Our next attendee then is Mr. John Taylor from Wessex Heritage. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would it be possible to have a copy of the plan you referred to with the colours on the screen, please? Showing the areas where they can drink at certain hours, the balconies, because I think it's quite important so the committee can understand how close some of these areas are to the residential units.
Okay.
If that would be possible.
I think looking at officers, if we could just pause the meeting for 5 minutes while we get that sorted out for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So can I just have confirmation that we're ready to stream again, please? Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience while we were sorting out the technology behind getting that done. Mr. Taylor, would you like to carry on, please?
Can I apologise for holding you up? Could I, via the plans, explain some of the areas and adjoining things?
Would you like to, for it to be scrolled down to show the smoking area on the ground floor?
If you could scroll up and go, right, stop there.
Yep.
The orange area is the area where there's currently restrictions until 10 o'clock. If I can I go up there and point? I'll shout, all right? Right, if you could scroll down, please, slightly, this way, so I can see the top bit. So that's the entrance. I'd strongly recommend a site visit because the problems here, as far as I'm concerned, are caused by the geography and how it is like a megaphone. A little more down here. Right, this was a covered way that Wetherspoons had to build because of the noise of trolleys coming through. This is property that I own with 7 tenants, and the bedroom windows are actually there. So, notwithstanding that this area is meant to be cleared at 10, this is used for smoking, and the staff are used there. The manager is very, very nice, and if you have any queries, he's very helpful, but you don't really want to get up at 1:30 and go down and complain. So if we can come back a bit more, in here are flats. Problem exacerbated here because the baker's Buster open at 3 o'clock with their machines. But can we go a bit higher? Sorry, the other way. Towards a bit higher. Right, there's residential areas here, and you have the big Pinder Court. I think it's 34 flats here, and there are flats all around and houses behind. Have you got the next floor plan, please? Right, this is the second floor, right at the back, and that is about 40 feet up, and it looks down on the area, level with Pinder Court here.
Might just be as to assist Mr. Taylor here in the committee, in that I'm told that area has not been used for a number of years. It's not currently in use.
But you have applied for a licence, and I'm dealing with the licence you've applied for, sir, if that's all right. Thank you very much. I won't go into too much detail, but can I just briefly say that I don't think any of you were on that committee, but this is a rerun of the previous committee of West Devon Borough Council on Tuesday the 21st of April 2015, when your council in their wisdom decide to restrict the hours to what they are at the moment, when Wetherspoons originally applied for longer hours. And if I may, I will read from your committee's decision then and the reasons. And I feel that nothing has changed since then, and that your committee should keep the same thing. As I've said, they're very nice next door, but it's very difficult to run, particularly the area the gentleman before has said me, there's always noise and everything else. Right, to comply with the actual reasons for objecting, the first one is prevention of crime and disorder. The extended hours will only exacerbate the current problems with noise, I own the whole block on the corner goes and the corn market. And we get urinating in the shop entrances, and if they can get up on the first floor, we've had to put gates on to lock people out. Damage to landscaping, shop windows, which I think will be increased given to the lack of police in the early hours of the morning. I would also remind this committee that the local authority have brought an alcohol-free zone in that area, and the area right in front of West Street, affected by that, is now a space protection order, which I think is very relevant and shows the problems that have been there. The other main reason for objecting is prevention of public nuisance. There will be increased levels of noise and disturbance during extended hours to the surrounding residents, including loud voices, smoking, bottle emptying, extract fans, light disturbance. And I'm going to show you now the extract fans. Here.
Sorry, Mr. Taylor, you will need to use the microphone while you're still speaking.
The extract fans are on the right side, and there's been a lot of problems, and as the manager will know, they're noisy, and therefore if they're long later. But just imagine tonight, 30 degrees today, you are in one of those windows overlooking. Whilst the manager's got a difficult job, that people do still make a lot of noise, and because it's like in a bowl, it's exacerbated. So what I would ask your committee, if I could just read from the reasons you restricted the hours previously. This is your council's minutes of the hearing of the 21st of April 2015. I don't think anyone is here, maybe someone from Wetherspoons. Yeah, because after negotiations, Wetherspoons agreed to reduce the hours because of the problems, and it was all sorted out amicably. So this is why I was surprised by this. Right, I'm reading from item 8. Well, no. Can you bear with me? The application proposed to reduce the hours for the sale of alcohol, this was the applicant after our representations, and late night refreshment on all standard days to finish at midnight, closing at 003 hours, together with additional operating conditions to take the external areas of the premises out of use for the consumption of food and drink after 10 o'clock and before 8. Also, they had to do, I forget, excuse me, what the right description is, but you had to have special training for door supervisors because it is so hard to monitor that. If the pub's busy, the manager's got to come out and clear that area, in theory, at 10 o'clock every night. With the best will in the world, when they're busy, it doesn't always happen. And this would be exacerbated if the hours were extended. Reasons for the decision. I'm just reading your accounts. The subcommittee listened and took into consideration the representations of the police and other persons present at the hearing. The main concerns raised were in relation to the extension of opening hours and the likelihood that those extended hours would not only lead to a noise nuisance, but also that due to the greater accessibility to alcohol, there would be a higher potential for antisocial behaviour in the area. Also of concern was the potential for a nuisance to be caused to neighbouring residents from noise, smoke and light pollution emanating from the use of the 3 outside drinking areas. It was highlighted that residential properties abut and look out directly onto the ground floor outside area, first floor, outside roof area, and upper level, in brackets, second floor, outside the area to the north boundary. And on item 9, the police requested further confirmation of the applicant that the exterior area between the gates to the south of the ground floor external area would not be used for customers, food or beverages, and remain clear. These are the minutes from your own decision. I don't think anything has changed, and with the best will in the world, I would agree. It's very hard to administer and keep noise out, but when you just talked about smoking, the staff are smoking under the bedroom windows of the property next door, and so if you could visit, it would help. But I hope I've explained myself, but please stick with your previous decision. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr Taylor. Councillors, any questions? Mr Leach, Councillor Leach, sorry.
That's okay. Under the present circumstances, have you had cause to actually make any complaints to the police or West Devon Environmental Health?
I own the building and I have 7 tenants in there. There have been a series of complaints to Environmental Health, flat 7, flat 6. The manager does a good job, but it's hard to control, is what I'm trying to say. I've no criticism of the staff, but when they're busy, some of their clientele have had a drink too much. So yes, there is a history of complaints, but they do their best. You know, I'm not criticising the people who work there. It's more the people who drink there. Does that help you?
This is for our site. Have we got evidence of these complaints from Environmental Health?
So we consult with all responsible authorities, including Environmental Health, and they have not made a representation in respect to this application. I'm not aware. Usually if there are complaints about licensed premises to do with noise, they would usually notify ourselves and the licensing team as well, and they haven't done so on this occasion. That does not mean I can't say that someone hasn't made a complaint, but as far as I'm aware, it's not been recorded and hasn't been passed through this process.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to go to licensing. It's a different department, but if you'd like to check, sorry. Thank you.
That's fine. Like our officer has explained, those comments haven't been passed to the licensing team as part of this application, and we always consult with them as well as others with regard to that. Thank you. If there are no other questions then for Mr Taylor, thank you. Then I would like to invite Miss Rita Stokes to come forward and speak, please. Nothing to add? Okay, thank you. In that case then, have we got any other questions to ask of anybody? Thank you. So I'll just check. Sorry, it's me checking procedural rules. I don't want to carry on. Are there any responses that you would like to offer in regard to some of the issues that have been raised?
Sorry, Chair, I missed that. I was just consulting with my colleague.
That's absolutely fine. I just want to make sure if there are any responses that you wish to raise at this time in response to any of the issues raised. I don't know whether there's
provision for a brief summing up, Chair. I'm happy to briefly do that. What I would say is that we fully understand the concerns of our neighbours to the change in hours. But What we would say is that we're a well-established, well-managed premises run by experienced managers. Mr Taylor has gone through the decision made by your colleagues when the premises, or I think in advance of the premises first opening. Clearly you're not bound by that decision, but what I would say in respect of that decision is that your colleagues on the committee at that time didn't have the benefit of the premises having traded for 10 years. We haven't brought an application to extend the hours back quickly before committee. It's been 10 years, and what I hope you will feel is that the premises have operated responsibly and well within that period. There are no representations from the key authorities of the police or EHO, and there isn't any direct evidence in front of you today of a history of complaints regarding mismanagement of customers, which I hope will give you some reassurance in terms of granting the application on this occasion. There's no intention to change any of the arrangements regarding smoking or use of those outside areas. Mr Taylor's comments have been noted in terms of how well that is managed. I'd be very surprised if we weren't managing that well and keeping to our premises licence conditions, but I'll be picking that up with the premises management afterwards. They're very experienced managers, and I'm sure they adhere to the conditions which are on their licence. Of course, nothing's set in stone, Chair, under the Licensing Act 2003. It does allow a review of the premises licence if the promises we've made have not been kept today, and we're happy to liaise with our neighbours going forward if issues arise. Trevor and Joe are well known to most of them, and what I would say, if there are complaints, please do make them directly to us so we can deal with any issues which do arise, when they arise, and I would make that plea to the residents. Chair, if it assists our neighbours and you in coming to a decision, in light of the concerns raised, we would be happy to amend the application to remove the part of the application which seeks longer hours at 1 a.m. on a Thursday, and we'll just keep that as existing. I think Councillor Cunningham raised the question of what our hours were in other pubs, and we referenced the Manor Mead where we open till midnight at 12 o'clock on a Thursday. We'll be happy to amend the application to ensure that that's the case here as well. So the only longer hours of sort would be on Friday and Saturday evening, where there is perhaps the greater demand. Chair, my last point is that your licensing policy makes reference to the how you determine applications. It does refer to the issue of risk at 5.18 on page 37. When determining an application, the authority is making a judgment about risk. A key purpose of the licensing function is not to respond to crime and disorder, nuisance or public harm once it has happened, but to make an informed assessment of the risk of such things occurring if a licence is granted. The authority will then take such steps as it considers appropriate to prevent or minimise such risk. What I hope to have done is convince you, Chair, and your fellow committee members that the risk of allowing this application, given the track record of the premises over the last 10 years, is minimal, and it can be granted without any risk to the undermining of the licensing objectives. So grateful for the opportunity, Chair, to present the application this morning and for the input of our neighbours.
Thank you for that. I did say I would circle back to the ground floor and the operational hours that's granted to that section, which we could see earlier shaded orange, if I've got the correct bit. My understanding is that the current licence restricts the use of that area for food and drink to 10 o'clock, but not for use for smoking. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
I guess what I want to check is to minimise the effect of anybody using that outside area. Would we be able to reasonably restrict that to smoking as well?
So the other two outside areas is no use at all after 10 p.m, even for smoking. That area was designated as an area that can be used for smoking until closing time, as an area where they would like their customers to be gathering. As Mr. Connor said, the alternative would potentially be that customers went out the front onto the pavement. So I believe that would be the argument to allow the use of that area for smoking until closing time. Obviously, on the other side of that, there is the extended potential of noise later into the night.
Okay, thank you. And do we need to be mindful of the space protection order that is in place with this, while we're looking at this application?
So the Public Spaces Protection Order restricts people from consuming alcohol in an area where it's designated, in a public place, so it doesn't affect the use of the licensed premises. And it is only if that person is behaving in an antisocial manner that the alcohol can be confiscated, or otherwise there's repercussions for that individual. That doesn't necessarily relate directly to this premises, it's for the entirety of the area, so it wouldn't necessarily relate to Wetherspoons any more than it would to the other licensed premises in the town. So it shouldn't affect this.
Thank you for that. I've got nothing further to add. No, nothing else. Okay, in that case then, we will go and discuss, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. So if we could pause the streaming for a moment, please. Thank you. And we'll be back as soon as we can. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your patience while we went off to discuss the application. Sorry, this is where it sounds all a bit monotone now as I read from the script that we have to. So we have considered the application to vary the premises licence. We have considered the statement of licensing policy, the government guidance and our obligations that relate to the promotion of the licensing objectives. We have read carefully the written representations from all parties, plus additional statements from persons here today. It is our decision to grant the application subject to the following changes being incorporated into the operating schedule. That there is the removal of the extra hour on the Thursday. And the reasons for our decisions are to limit the possible impact of noise on the residential area. Further to that, we would advise any residents, based on the information that we've been given today, that if there are any complaints, obviously to take them in the first instance to the premises themselves, but also if they are to register a complaint to environmental health, that they then follow that through with diarised entries so that we've got a proper record of the incidents that we can then follow through on. Thank you for your time today, and I therefore close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.